Welcome, everybody. This is the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley, and every week we bring you stories of people who are working to make the lives of others better, whether that's locally, globally, or digitally. And our group, the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley, is part of Rotary International, 1.4 million Rotarians and Rotaractors around the world in 36,000 or more clubs. And they are people who love a good story about how a moment transformed them into thinking about how they can do something that would have an impact in the lives of others. And in this case, our story today is with Barb Demorest. And Barb has a very powerful story about a moment that was very difficult, that became a moment that has brought hope to many, many people, and comfort to their families and the many people who help make that happen. Barb, we are so excited to have you with us. Tell us the story of knitted knockers.
Thank you for this opportunity to share this story, which is so near and dear to my heart. I'm hoping to share how this innovative, simple solution to a problem impacted not only my life, but ended up subsequently impacting 500,000 other women's lives and many thousands more, as well as having worldwide impact. So I am the founder of Knitted Knockers Support Foundation, and Knitted Knockers are breast prosthetics for women who have had a mastectomy, and they're made by volunteers. And you're probably wondering, okay, what do I care about that? What does that mean to me? Well, I'm hoping that you'll stick with it and find that it touches all of us in some pretty unique ways. So it was 11 years ago, actually it was 2011, 12 years ago now, when I heard the words that no woman wants to hear, that I had breast cancer. And I thought right away, I hope I don't lose my hair, and I hope I don't have to have a mastectomy. Well, I did have to have a mastectomy, and I thought, it'll be okay. I can be immediately reconstructed. Nobody needs to know. Well, due to complications, that didn't happen. So then I was faced with, what am I going to do to look normal, to get back to life and to work? I made a phone call to the local cancer support group, and I'll never forget the voice on the other end of the line saying to me, "Oh, honey, I am so sorry, but you won't be able to put anything on that scar for at least 6 weeks." 6 weeks. I was devastated. I needed to get back to life. I wanted to get back to work. I wanted to be normal. 6 weeks. That was the low point for me, and the first time I cried. I went to my doctor's office and I picked up a brochure for the traditional breast prosthetics. And my doctor looked at me and he said, you know, many women are not satisfied with that as a solution. They can be hot and heavy and sticky, and they're very expensive, and you can't wear them for a while. And I said, well, what am I going to do? And that man doctor looked at me and he said, "Do you knit?" Yeah, why? He said, "Well, I've never seen one, but I've heard there's such a thing as a knitted knocker. You might want to check it out." Whoa, I raced home and I called my dear friend Phyllis, the best knitter I know. And I said, "Phyllis, have you heard of a knitted knocker?" And she said, "No, but I'll find out." So the next week I ventured out into public for the first time. I was very self-conscious. I put on a loose-fitting jacket, stuck a sock in my bra, and I went to church. I hoped nobody would look at me. I wanted to be very inconspicuous. Here comes Phyllis tripping into church with a Victoria's Secret bag. And I knew what had to be in that bag, so I grabbed it and I took it into the bathroom stall, and I pulled out the most beautiful knitted knocker. It was soft, it was light, it was huggable, and I could wear it in my own bra. And that little gift changed everything. I took out that sock, I put this in my bra, I whipped off my jacket, and I re-engaged with life. I know it sounds dramatic, but it literally changed everything for me. I went out, got hugs from my friends, visited with them, and I knew right then that we needed to provide these to our local doctor's offices so women that are in there dejected, wondering what they're going to do, can take these home with them. We needed to be a Phyllis for them. So I went to my doctor and I said, if we make these for you, would you hand them out? And he said, I'd love to do that. I went to my plastic surgeon's office. Would you care to hand these out? Love to do that. So they started handing them out. I got a phone call from Julie, my plastic surgeon's nurse, and she said, Barb, I wish you could be here when we're handing these out, because women are so dejected and despondent, wondering what they're going to do. And we bring out these knitted knockers and it makes them smile. Some of them laugh and some even cry. I wish you could be here. And I'm like, I don't need to be there because I was that woman. So with that encouragement, Phyllis and I just started knitting like crazy, and we redoubled our efforts, and we started taking them into more and more into our doctor's office. But we realized that with over 50,000 mastectomies done a year back then, and there's even more now, that this was too good to keep just to ourselves. We needed to replicate this around the country, but it was too much for any one group to do. So we set out to inspire and equip people to do these, to make these for their own communities. So then we created a website and we posted the patterns and the video tutorials on how to make them. Those patterns have now been downloaded 1.2 million times. And we visited craft shows and connected with knitters and crocheters who quickly embraced this project, because with 1 out of 8 women having breast cancer sometime in their life, most of us know somebody. And we always want to help, but we always don't always know how. But this was a very real way that they could find purpose with their craft, their knitting and crocheting. So orders started coming into our website from women requesting these. We had put a link there. And we were stunned to find out that when they requested these free knitted knockers, many of them would tell us their stories. And they would tell us of their struggles with lymphedema, scarred sensitive skin from radiation, and how the traditional breast prosthetics were failing for them. They were so hopeful and happy to have this as an alternative. And we heard many, many quotes from them. And I just don't have time to share them, but they're very heartwarming. And family members would request them. And one, I'm just going to probably butcher the quote because it's from memory, but it really touched me, came from a husband who said, I'm ordering these for my wife because she's struggling terribly after her surgery. And I want her to know that she's still gorgeous to me. And I'm hoping that this will help her feel the same about herself. Oh, it just touched me so much. So this little product that we knew was a great product turned out to be a place of healing where people could share their stories that they can't always share with their friends and family. And it also became a place of passion and purpose for those knitters and crocheters. So we set out after we got this huge network going, and we were giving out about 1,000 knitted knockers a month, and we got some huge publicity from a Dear Abby column letter. They have 100 million readers. Who knew that? And the response was, we got 10,000 orders for knitted knockers in one day. And so we were like overwhelmed, but we had these groups all over the country that were filling orders. And so we set out to accomplish that. And we filled all 10,000 of those orders in 3 months. But I learned something. Gmail only allows you 5,000 emails a day, and we had hit that within 3 hours of that Dear Abby running. So I knew we needed to get our processes in order, get our systems working so that we could meet this huge demand. I found out that over 1 million women in the United States have had a mastectomy and not been reconstructed. Common misconception is that everybody gets reconstructed. No. And so people can benefit from these, even if it's just for a short while they're awaiting reconstruction. So with those processes working much better and our network expanded to thousands of providers, we set out to reach my dream, and that was to connect with the medical facilities and to provide them to the doctor's offices. So we worked very hard to match up medical facilities with local groups to adopt them and provide the physical knitted knockers while we would provide the print materials, the brochures, the care instructions and such. We went to 3 medical conferences that year in 2016. And throughout that year, we signed up 800 medical clinics. It was a huge hit. We heard from more and more clinics about what it meant to them to be able to offer this service. It was a joy to partner with them, as well as the local groups providing to their own communities, knitting and crocheting for the women in their own communities. And the meaning it brought to the women receiving those knitted knockers, knowing that it was an unconditional gift of love, that nobody was profiting from this, and it was because people cared. It brought so much to the table. So now we have 1,970 medical clinics signed up with us, and we're signing up 1 a day, well, 5 a week. I don't want to exaggerate. 5 clinics a week are contacting us saying, how can we provide these to our patients? And over a half of those are adopted by local groups, and the other half we're providing for remotely while we're still working very hard to connect them with local groups. But there was more. The international impact. We were invited to go to Rwanda, and it was way beyond our scope to be able to go and present these in Rwanda. But we had to go when we heard the story of the myth and stigma of breast cancer there. And the myth surrounding it was even that if you talk about breast cancer, you'll get it. And it was a curse to have your breast removed. So they had traditional breast prosthetics donated to them, but they weren't of their skin color. And they shared with us that the rats and insects eat the silicone. So it was like, ooh, but these knitted knockers, you could wash them, you could wear them in your bra. They couldn't make them though, because they could knit, but they could not read the patterns. So they said, would you come? 3 of us did go to Rwanda, used our own funds. We couldn't use our 501c3 ones because it was beyond the scope. We didn't have the funds anyway. But out of that, we trained 30 women to make knitted knockers. And we connected with the Minister of Health, who determined that they made a renewed commitment to removing the stigma surrounding breast cancer, got a new mammogram machine in the country. And I'll just share one quick story. We were invited to share with the local hospital, and the head of the hospital was a physician, and he picked up this knitted knocker that we had brought, and he started to cry. And he said, just yesterday, I had this woman in who needed to have a mastectomy, and she said no. And I said, it's your breast or your life. And I had nothing to offer her. We need these. So we were able to connect them with this group of women that would make them for them. And they paid for the supplies to do it. And then they handed them out free. And they're now in all 5 international hospitals. I know I'm out of time. I'll just say briefly now that we are now in 60 countries. We have presence in 60 countries, and we're giving away 10 to 12,000 free knitted knockers a month. And we have just reached the 500,000 mark of women who have received these gifts of comfort and dignity. And I'll just conclude with this. Some of you may be wondering, how can I help? What does this mean to me? Because I don't knit. And so I always like to share that there's 3 ways to help. One is if you can knit or crochet, go to knittedknockers.org. We'll equip you to make them. If you can share on social media, it helps reach not only the women that can use these, but those that can make them. And then there's the donate factor. We are all volunteer 501c3, no paid employees. And this is accomplished by the generosity of willing donors and people that donate to us. Our postage alone is over $50,000 a year. So with that, I'll open it up to questions.
Wow, Barb, wonderful. Thank you so much for your story. I'm excited for us to kind of leap into the questions. I want to introduce the people we have on the call as well. So from our club, we have here in the Bay Area, Sandy Stabile and Phil Dean, and our treasurer based in Italy is Cecilia Babkirk. My name is Rushton. I am the programs chair, and I love stories like this. Barb, this was really, kind of a moment where not only did you realize that, that there was something that could be powerful for you, but very quickly figured out that this is something for which there was a need that was global.
Yes, and I must say, I was a CPA by profession. Tax is my specialty. It has nothing to do with anything of this. So this was totally out of my skill set and training. So I kind of went into it blindly. I saw the need and I go, oh my gosh, everybody needs this. And so just one step at a time, proceeded to catch the vision and set out to inspire and equip other people to come together to do this.
Well, this has some very close ties to our club. First of all, our president, Angelica, has identified this year as a year where we work with all sorts of health ideas, and we've worked to bring a lot of programs related to health as well. But we are also coming up on our annual Relay for Life here in Santa Clara, California. And we have members of our club who will walk as part of that, donate, share messages. And for all of our members, the chances are pretty good you will see this at about the time we're talking about this. So if you haven't written back, please do. But talk to us a little bit more about the thing about the knocker itself, right? So how long does one of these last? Do you find that people have had to really think about materials in a particular way so that they're all the more easily used by the women who would receive these? Can you speak a little bit in detail about that?
Yes, I wore one myself for 4 years, the same knitted knocker. So I knew that the quality of the materials used was very important. So we set out to identify for the knitters and crocheters appropriate yarns to use. We have a list of 30 approved yarns, and that's all we use. And then they're stuffed with polyfiber fill, but they're designed to be thrown in the wash machine and either machine dried or air dried. They can be used for swimming. They can be used for exercise. I hope this is a safe environment to say this in. I feel like the traditional breast prosthetics have failed us in so many ways. And this simple solution to the problem, I like to use the word innovative. It's so simple, handmade by people that care. Addressed most of those problems.
Well, the the power of doing this through a volunteer network. I mean, because you talk about the kind of experience that is not just physical, it's emotional, right? It's psychological, and so that the power of having volunteers share their time and work to make that available to people. I mean, that's huge, and I love that that's such an important part of your story.
I didn't have the time to share a story of Anne. It takes about 20 seconds. Is that okay?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay. We were meeting weekly, a group of us, about 20 women, and men, by the way, to stuff the knockers and distribute them. And we had a great time every week doing that. And one week Anne came, and she's an elderly woman, and she's very, very quiet, didn't say much. She sat there and started crocheting a knocker. We are laughing away, came time to leave, and I followed Anne out to her car. And I said, Anne, I'm so glad you came. It was wonderful having you today. And she looked at me and she said, I lost my husband about 3 years ago. And she said, I've been grieving terrible ever since. I've tried grief counseling. I've tried support groups. Nothing has helped like this has, knowing I can still make a difference in someone else's life. And so that passion and purpose that extended beyond just this great little product to these thousands of networks of knitters, they wanted to help. They just needed to be equipped to do it.
So a question that came in through the chat actually has to do with the I assume has to do with the volunteers as well. Who pays for the raw materials? Often is that something where the volunteers themselves will say, we'll get the right yarn, we'll put this into it, we'll mail them? I mean, how does the knitting volunteer end up contributing? And maybe that's a variety of ways.
Yes, well, yes and yes. The yarn is supplied by the knitters, and that is a commitment. We try to keep the cost of the approved yarns down to under $2 a knitted knocker, but for some people on fixed income, that's very difficult. It's important to us that the quality of the product going out it's all about the recipient. However, when a person does not have the funds to do it, we can supplement it on a small basis, but we don't have a lot of money either. So most knitters provide the yarn themselves. And if they can only make 1 or 2 a year, that's 1 or 2 women that have been helped. Some of them have made over 1,000 knitted knockers themselves, and knitting groups will take these on as their charitable project for the year and such. The stuffing, things like that, they can mail the knockers to us. We provide all the stuffing and the delivery. We have a network of 187 what we call state suppliers, and those are people that we have vetted and have agreed to fill the orders that come in to knittedknockers.org requesting knockers from their state. So they're mailing those out, and then we reimburse them the postage, because we'd have to be paying it if we were doing it. So we reimburse the postage. We've committed to do that for everybody, and we provide all the print materials. But the knitters and crocheters are providing the yarn.
Wow. Sandy, I believe you have a question.
Thank you for your talk. It's just, I mean, it's amazing what you've done. So thank you very much. My question is, you said you're in 60 countries. That's so amazing. Now, do you ship to other countries, or you just have people there that make the knockers and then supply them to the person in that country?
The network of 61 countries actually have groups in there that fill orders that come in from knittedknockers.org. They're directed to those countries. Those countries that do not have a presence there, we are working constantly to add more countries in. But we used to mail all around the world, but we found, especially during COVID, that mail wasn't getting through. So we do have a challenge for those countries, providing them to those countries.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So you're closing in on 2,000 clinics signed up, I believe. And
Yes.
by the time this is the program for our weekly meeting, I'm guessing you'll have gotten there. And in part, that's because you will be keynoting at a medical convention coming up. Is that right?
Yes.
Can you
The
tell us more about that?
NCOBC, the NCOBC is the National Consortium of Breast Centers. They're the organization where breast clinics go to get certified in breast things. And they're made up of radiologists, oncologists, nurse practitioners, on and on. I know I'm missing a bunch, but it's a great opportunity for us to reach out and inform them as well about this great phenomenon that they don't want to miss out on, that we can partner with them and help them reach women at their most vulnerable time.
It would seem that the reason that there are so many people that have volunteered to help and so many connections is because this is such a powerful and clear story, right? And I would think that this would represent some good PR for any company that wanted to show how it is helping with the community. Have you had corporate partnerships of any kind, or have you been able to make any inroads with organizations that wanted to essentially help make what you're doing happen?
Yes. We were selected by the Seattle Seahawks NFL team as their charity of the month. I mean, who knew that could happen? But that's not exactly what you're asking. Merck Pharmaceuticals, they've provided teams where they donate time, and so they will do projects for us and such. And some companies like Amazon and Microsoft, and I know I'm missing some. Anyway, they have programs where they will compensate employees for their volunteer time, or they'll match it. And so we've partnered with employee groups for that sort of thing. And we're always looking for the opportunity to spread the word, but also for financial opportunities. Like Safeco Insurance has embraced us for their employees and matching programs and such. And we're registered in all of the giving platforms for the major corporations. But funding is always a challenge for us, because it's hard for us to ask for money, because we just love the fact that I call it pure. It's just a gift of love and compassion, and nobody is profiting from it. And so it's kind of hard to ask for money, but most of our funding comes in $10 and $20 donations. And we are going strong. Stronger than ever. We survived through COVID and the shutdown of most of the medical facilities on doing these procedures and such. It's just amazing to me. It never ceases to amaze me.
Well, for all of our viewers, I would encourage people to just know that if you might talk to your employer just about ways that they reach out in the community, perhaps this would be an opportunity, and hopefully that's something interesting for them as well. Phil, you have a question.
Yes, I learned about this yesterday from Rushton, and it was so remarkable. I went and talked to my wife about it. She's a knitter. She immediately has registered with you, and she wants to learn more about how to go about doing it, because she wants to be involved. And I think all of her people she knows who are knitters in this town will learn about it very quickly also. So I'm sure you're going to get some support from here.
Thank you. And it's such a joy for me to hear when people catch that vision and want to help. So thank you. So anybody that wants to find out more, knittedknockers.org is our organization. There is no .com. It's knittedknockers.org. And there's videos there on different ways to help, and lots of fun material, I think. So I would direct people to go there to find out more information. And I also love, it's my favorite thing, sharing this story. So if anybody has any ideas of a time that it would be appropriate, contact me, Barbara@knittedknockers.org, and I would be happy to do that if possible.
Well, fantastic. What we're going to do is we're going to wind things down with some usual info, and then Barb will hand it back to you for a final word in just a moment. But for all of you who have been part of this, either in person today or watching the recording, we hope you will do several things. We hope that you will let us know that you are here. If you are watching this on our website, you scroll down just a little bit and you'll find our attendance form that can generate an email that you can pass along to your club secretary. If you're visiting us, feel free to do that. There's also the forum at the bottom where you can share ideas and share thoughts. Speaking of sharing, I want to send a special thanks to Shags, our paella master here in the club, who found the story and shared it with us, and that's how we got connected. So all of you who are either in the club or who just kind of like catching our programs, if you hear about stories that have the kind of impact and generate the kind of inspiration that this story did, for example, with Anne, in the story that Barb shared with us, that's a powerful moment of service for you as well. We hope that you will share, the stories that come across your life in that fashion. So as we always like to do, we hand it back to our speaker for the final word. Barb, what would you like people to have in mind as they finish off the recording?
Well, I would just like to remind you that sometimes it's those simplest acts of kindness. My doctor asking me, "Do you knit?" was an act of compassion that was beyond the scope of what he needed to do, but it changed everything. So those little gifts of kindness can have an impact far beyond your wildest imagination. And I think I'm probably going to say this wrong, Edwin Burke, that says the biggest danger you can do is to do nothing because you can do so little. Or the biggest mistake you can make is to do nothing because you can do so little. And I thought, what can I do? But I just did what I could, and look what's happened.
The power of service. Wonderful, Barb. Thank you, and thanks everyone. We will see you next week.